Good evening, everybody. We are in chapter 4 in the Shulchan Aruch, halacha number 14. So when one wakes up early in the morning, it says before Amud HaShachar. Amud HaShachar is dawn, which is approximately 72 minutes before the sun rises. If they get up that early, they should wash their hands. Washing our hands, we discussed before, for several different reasons. Okay, I'll try to go through them. One is while we are asleep, our hands are called askanios. They're very busy and they touch part of our body that's normally covered and has sweat and maybe other things. And therefore, in order to pray and to mention God's name, we must have clean hands. We cannot have hands that are dirty. That's according to the Rosh. According to the Rashba, that after we sleep, we get up from the sleep, we are born again. We are a new creation, a Bria Chadashah, new creation. And within that, there's also an opinion that it's just like a Kohen, a priest, goes into the temple and serves Hashem. That's what this world is. This world is our temple. We are the priests. We're serving Hashem. And when you go into it, when the priest goes into the temple, his hands and feet have to be washed before service. So too, that's what we do. There's another idea. It's called Ruach Ra. And it's a little bit complicated to explain time-wise, but I'm going to try to condense it. You can look at the previous videos to get a better idea, but we'll translate Ruach Ra as a contaminated spirit. We have 5 levels of our soul. When we go to sleep, there's a portion of our soul that goes on high. It detaches itself from this earthly sphere and connects with the Almighty. During that moment, anytime that there's an absence of life, a vacuum is created. And it's either holy or not holy. It's like black and white, right? Black and white, seemingly. So whenever there's and we're going to discuss this today, in fact, whenever there's this loss of life or life potential, this tuma, that's the word, tuma, the impurity or contaminated spirit would enter. So when you wake up and your soul returns, then that contaminated spirit leaves you, and it leaves through the extremities. And the extremities, the most extreme places are obviously the hands and the feet. So we must wash our hands 3 times, alternatively, to get rid of the residue that might have been left behind. Okay, I know it's I really tried to sum it up in short. Okay, anyway, so if you wake up before this moment of dawn, you must wash your hands. So therefore, there is a doubt if you need to wash your hands another time when the day actually arises in order to remove the Ruach Ra from your hands. So it's better to wash without a blessing. In other words, what causes the Ruach Ra? It's not just the fact that the soul re-enters, okay? Now we're into this idea that it could be a period in time. We're not sure, is it the soul? Or even, let's say you stayed up the whole night. Or let's say like this, here the exact example is you woke up 2 hours early before the sun rose, and then you stayed awake, and then the sun rose. Do you need to wash your hands a second time? And we fall back to the principle we mentioned before, that anything that is a rabbinic command, we always, in doubt, we go lenient, we push it aside. If it's from the Torah, we go to the strict side. And if there's a doubt, you repeat, or you have to do it again, in whatever sense we're talking about. So, also think about it, that mentioning God's name in vain, for no reason, is a biblical sin. And making the blessing is a rabbinical command. Okay, so weighing that out, if you're in doubt about making the rabbinical command, you're not sure, but you know that you can't violate God's word by using his name in vain, so the real simple mathematics tell you that you don't make the blessing. Okay, you made it already, especially, and in this case, because there's a doubt, you're not going to make the blessing. 15. Okay, I see we're doing really well today. Number 15. Yisham biyom. What if you went to sleep during the day? You took a little, either cat nap. Okay, we're not sure how long the nap is yet. We're going to discuss that. You went to sleep during the day. There is a doubt whether or not you need to have.
She telling me, I'll just get up. Okay, bye.
Whether or not you need to pour the water over your hands 3 times or not. Again, when we talk about waking up in the morning, getting rid of the ruach ra, so we fill up the cup of water with our right hand, meaning, okay, you're going to take the cup and fill it, or you're going to pick it up with your right hand. You pass it over to your left, and you pour on your right. Okay, so maybe these are new concepts, I don't know, but the idea that to the right side is mercy, and the left side is judgment. And like I said, halacha means everything we do, and I mean everything, as we're going to see later on. But we talked about which hand to tie your shoe with, which shoe to put on first. When you're in the shower, which side you start with, and so forth. When you get dressed and when you get undressed, all these things matter. So we have a, what's the word? We have a motto. You can adopt it. Maybe we'll make a bumper sticker out of it. And it's going to go like this. All deeds matter. Right? All deeds matter. It's not the only thing that matters, but every deed does matter. Okay. So, number 16, King David. David was very careful not to sleep. Kathy, I hope you're listening to this. Kathy, you still there? I don't know if we lost her. Anyway, I hope not. King David was careful not to sleep 60 breaths. What does that mean? So we have a tradition. That means a half hour. David did sleep between the hours of 8 p.m. and midnight. He got up at midnight every night. There was a magical harp above his bed that blew, and we assume that he was actually awake when the alarm went off. And he did not push the snooze button. But he awakened the dawn, and he was like a lion, and he studied Torah from midnight onward. So we have a tradition that says that every hour that you sleep between 8 until midnight, it's like sleeping 2 hours for each hour, which means a person who sleeps 4 hours is like he slept 8 hours. And anyway, King David was to make sure that during that 4-hour period, he actually took 8 cat naps, meaning he did not sleep for more than a half an hour continuously. But he did sleep during those 4 hours, in order not to taste the taste of death. As we mentioned, there's this little bit of death. In other words, when your soul leaves you, when a part of your soul leaves you, that's death. So we say sleeping is like 1/60th of death. In fact, in rabbinical terms, 1/60th means almost negligible. It's not even there. That's why in kashrus, right, when a piece of non-kosher food falls in, I'm just giving you the general ideas. Obviously, there are very specifics, whether it's liquid, whether it's solid, whether it's still visible, whether it has taste, whether it's the same type or a different type. Okay, so those all are going to make a big difference in halacha with being kosher. But basically, according to Torah law, if it's 51-49, it's kosher. Majority is kosher. And but in most cases. But when it comes to rabbinic law, so they made it 1/60th, because then it's called negligible. It says even when someone goes and visits someone in the hospital, they receive 1/60th of the person's illness to take it away from them. So, but it's negligible. It's not there. It's there. It's there, but it's not there. Our class deals with a lot of metaphysical ideas, right? That's what we're dealing with. The world is full of not just physical reality, which we all know, but a meta reality, a very spiritual reality that we are trying to be conscious of. Okay, so that's what David did. 17. There are those that are accustomed to wash their mouth out in the morning, because you have. I'm not just going to say saliva. Everyone has saliva, but perhaps dryness or mucus or something in your mouth, and to utter God's name with a crusty or stout mouth is not appropriate, although there are fast days. And those fast days we mentioned before that one does not wash their mouth out with, but if they have this overwhelming feeling of disgust and they just cannot even get out of bed if they didn't wash their mouth, then it would be permissible to wash your mouth as long as you don't swallow, which means, if you can do it, to lean over this way, whatever. In other words, if you try to gargle with your head back, it's likely that some will go down your throat. But if you push yourself forward, which is kind of difficult, but anyway, the trick is not to swallow in a fast day. But anyway, getting back to the halacha, these are the things that one is required to actually wash their hands with water. So this list may surprise some of you. And when you get up in the morning, okay, so that we are not surprised by. That's what we've been dealing with for the last several laws. When someone goes out from a Beit HaKisei in Hebrew, the house of the throne, that would be the bathroom. Okay, now, the house of the throne, meaning the bathroom, we're talking about a real bathroom. Our bathrooms are not real bathrooms, okay? But if you had just a toilet or just a hole, not a sink and not a bathtub and not, a vanity, all the things that we normally keep in a bathroom because we spend a lot more time there than we should. But let's say that's where, you have a mirror and you comb your hair and you do all the makeup. So that's not really a Beit HaKisei, especially because we have what we call at least a Persian toilet, meaning the Persians in the old days, they invented these ideas of a canal that ran underneath that hole, and it basically swept away the feces. So it doesn't remain, the tumah, the contaminated spirits does not remain there. Okay, but anyway, so a real Beit HaKisei, you would have to wash your hands when you left, which anyway, we know that we wash anyway when we leave we're talking about just walking in, not going to the bathroom. Obviously, if you went and you use the facilities, you actually use them, obviously you have to wash your hands. We're just talking about walking in to one of these places. A Beit HaMerchatz, that would be not a spa, but like a jacuzzi room, a place where people just do their washing. Probably a mikveh would apply to that. Cutting your fingernails, right, would require. Now, we cut our fingernails, by the way, in a way that may sound very strange. We don't cut in order, because when we take care of the dead, it's called a purification process, like baptism. We take the dead body and we clean the body up very well, cleaning under the fingernails, just like they're going to the mikveh. When a woman goes to the mikveh, she can't have any, scabs and all the things like Band-Aids, anything that's going to prevent the water from touching the skin. Talking about when a woman goes on a monthly cycle or whenever it's a mitzvah to go. We can't have knots in the hair. There's different things that would, the water has to penetrate the entire body 100%. So a dead body, we clean it up and we cut the fingernails and they're cut in order. So because, again, we don't want to taste death or even make it look like a lot of things we do has to do with the way things may appear. The power of thought is extremely powerful, and the power of other people's thoughts can have power over us. So one of the things we do when we cut our nails, I'm talking metaphysically, not to have even the aura of death, we cut every other nail and then go back and cut every other nail. Similarly, like we pass bread. We don't pass bread in someone's hand, we put it on the table in front of them. Okay. So it shouldn't be the bread of shame. Also, we wash our hands when we remove our shoes. But we're talking about touching our shoes. If you're able to remove your shoes without touching your shoes, that's not what it's talking about. It's actually touching the leather shoe. So if you wear Converse sneakers, or you have, what are those things called, Crocs. There's all kinds of materials today that people use that are not leather. But leather, if you touch the leather, then you have to wash your hands. Benogeh baragla, if you touch your feet, or if you scratch your head. Now, scratching your head specifically in the place where your kippah, or for a woman where she wears her hat or her head covering, because again, that's the sweat builds up there. Just like according to Jewish law of modesty, we really only have to wash our hands where we touch, that is, the place is normally covered. In other words, in America, many men wear, I don't know what they're called, but they're not like tees, but a nice dress shirt. They might come up to here. So if you touch your arm, your skin of your arm, you don't have to wash your hands because the sweat doesn't build up there. But wherever, inside, so then we assume that your hands are dirty because of the swirls of sweat or the balls of sweat, or you may not even be aware of it, but it's there because it just evaporates into the atmosphere. But that's easy to evaporate into the atmosphere when it's not covered. When it's covered, it's caught or trapped by the clothing. Well, these are things you never would have thought of, right? So some say even if you walk amongst the dead, okay, what does that mean? It means to go to a cemetery, or you're at a funeral and you're carrying the pallbearer, or you're close within a certain proximity of the dead body, or if you actually touch a dead body. So the custom of when we leave a cemetery, we leave a house where there was a dead body, we wash our hands 3 times and we turn the cup upside down, which is not the case by any other thing. And not to walk into anyone else's house until we have washed ourselves. So usually when you go to the house of mourning, there is usually every Jewish cemetery anyway, there's a place to wash when you leave. But if you did forget, so before you walk into the house of mourning, there's usually a bucket outside, at least in America. Here, I think, because all the cemeteries have the place to wash, it's not a problem. Okay, we're getting into some really uncharted territory here. If you check your clothes for lice or any type of linens, if you're checking them for lice, just checking them alone, you have to wash your hands. Okay, this is what we're going to end up dealing with a lot today, believe it or not, in Parshas Tazria, here it says before, I'm sorry, Mishamesh mitato, when you use the bed. When you use the bed, that is a nice way of saying when you are having intimate relations with your spouse, okay? You must wash your hands afterwards. The truth is, the custom is to wash your hands before as well. Because this is something, whenever you wash your hands, you're entering a level or a consciousness of holiness. And being intimate it's not an animalistic act, it is one of the most holiest experiences that we have. It's like entering the Holy of Holies, and we wash our hands in preparation for such an act. And because I mentioned of the loss of life, this has to do also with the fact that semen was excreted, so there's another reason to wash at least afterwards, okay? It also applies to women. Okay, if you actually touch a lice, and I think they're called, what are they called in singular? Lie? Or that's plural. Okay, I don't know. When you touch a kina is a lice, or a lie. I'm not sure if that's correct, but anyway. Or if you touch your body with your hand, as we mentioned, a part of your body that's normally covered. And anybody does any one of these things, and he doesn't wash, wait till you hear what happens. Okay. It says that a Talmud Chacham, he will lose a sage, a wise scholar, he will lose his learning, and if he's not a wise scholar, then he will go crazy, he or she. So, and it really doesn't end there, does? No. Okay. There's another piece later on that kind of complements this point. I will tell you, there's an idea, I just heard this, it's something I was reminded of. It says already in the Talmud that only a Talmud Chacham, meaning a wise person, is allowed to eat meat. If you're not wise, you're not allowed to eat meat. Now, so what does that mean? So there's different levels of understanding. You could say if you're not wise, you probably don't know how to do the slaughter properly. You don't know how to deal with the salting process. And you don't know how to deal with removal of the organs, and which organs you can eat and which limbs you can eat. Some are forbidden, some go to the Kohen. Okay, so it could be that. So I heard another idea. There's 4 levels of, not consciousness, there's 4 levels to creation. We call domain, that's the inanimate material, the mineral world. And then you have tzemach. Tzemach is the plant and things that grow. And then above that you have the animal world, and above that you have man. Okay, man can be broken up into two different categories, Jew and Gentile. No, I'm kidding. I'm not really kidding that much. That what is man? Man is the animal that speaks. In other words, what's the difference between animal and human? We speak. God, when he breathed into us, the soul, Anklos, the famous convert, says, what does it mean God breathed into him the soul? The soul that speaks. That's what we are. That's what we are. We're in the created image of God. We're part animal, part God. Okay? Okay. Where am I going with this? So, the idea of why is a Talmud Chacham, a scholar, able to eat meat? Because what happens is that the plant that's the second level up, they nourish themselves from the minerals. The animals nourish themselves from the plants. Man nourishes himself from the animals. So there's this gradation. So only a Talmud Chacham, someone who's wise, understands this whole process, and that's what we're here to do, to elevate the world. We're here to create a better world and to elevate and understand. Only if you learn Torah, only if you learn Scripture, you have a clue what's going on, and you're able to actually, metaphysically bring up the world to a higher level. But someone who doesn't learn Torah and is not involved in Scripture cannot eat meat because there's no purpose to this eating of the meat. It's only murder and killing. Another thing I heard today, not today, but this week, that I was aware, but I was reminded of, that it's only the kosher animals that don't freak out when you have the knife, the slaughterer has the knife. They want to go. They want to be elevated. They know that's their purpose. The non-kosher animals, there's nothing you can do to elevate them anyway. That's why the word asur means tightly bound. The sparks cannot go up, and basically you are what you eat. Another idea, but the word asur means tightly bound. Matir means released. So the word for permissible is matir, and the word for forbidden is asur. In other words, it's forbidden because there's no purpose. It's a wasted energy and wasted calories. It's just a waste. It's not going to help the world. It's not going to help you. Okay. In fact, it says that it'll cause your heart to develop an orla, metamten et alev. In other words, our heart, we have to have circumcised to the point where we are no barriers between us and God. So if you eat non-kosher food, and this is by a Jew, I don't know what happens by a non-Jew, but that they call it blood, heart clots, right? I mean, it's not good for the heart, but I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking purely on a spiritual level. And it could be also spiritually. It says my connection was lost. You guys back there? You guys back? I don't know how much you missed. How much did you guys miss? This is videotaped, so Bezrat Hashem, I'll send you all the link afterwards. I don't know what you missed. Okay.
And we lost you right when you were saying what happens to a Gentile when they don't eat kosher food. We lost it.
Oh, God.
If you're a Gentile, you don't eat kosher food, blank.
Okay, so I'll reiterate. I basically said that the laws of kashrut, a Gentile's allowed and may, but they're not obligated. And but what happens to a Jew when he eats kosher food, not kosher food? It creates I'm talking purely metaphysically, okay? But I'm going to use physical terms. It causes high cholesterol and the hardening of the arteries, and basically a covering over the heart, which is what needs to be removed. It's called the orla. In Hebrew, we call it metamten et alev. A metamten means a covering. Let's say, for example, I don't know if you know this, not just men and women in this world. I know that it might be seen black and white, but there are things called an androgynous, which means a person who's born with two both species genitals. Maybe one works, the other one doesn't. But either way, and then there's a timtum, which means that the skin is covering the genitals. And until the skin has been removed, we don't know what they are. Or it's inside. The genitals are inside, and it's impossible to see what they are. And there are halachos that deal with these types of people. Are they a man or a woman? Which halacha applies to them? And can you marry them? And, how do they live their lives? So God created the world, gave us the blueprint, and we know how to deal with these things. Unfortunately, things are just a little bit out of hand today, so we don't have to go into that. So I think that's where we left off. I hope that was clear. That the idea is that if somebody does not eat kosher food, they will develop a spiritual barrier. They become spiritually insensitive. You are what you eat. So why are animals, like last week, we had Shmini, maybe in America they're still on Shmini. We dealt with all the laws of kashrut, which animals, which are kosher, which are not. So the animals that are of prey, they prey or pounce upon their edibles, they are the ones that are not kosher. They have bad character traits. Chewing the cud means that you are satisfied with what you have. You're willing to have last night's dinner again tonight, right? Having lunch again for dinner. So there's this idea of histapkut. God brought us into the desert for 40 years so we could learn to deal with the idea that we should be satisfied with very little physical pleasures. It's all about the spiritual world. So when it comes to animals that have these traits, we stay away from. But the animals that have the good traits, those are the ones that we eat. Another idea, why a split hoof? The other animals are always running and pouncing, but the ones with the split hoof stand still and eat. So there's this idea of, again, histapkut, of being satisfied with very little. You're willing to let Hashem bring to you the food, and you're not always running around crazily, I guess, in the rat race of keeping up with the Joneses, or in our cases, the Schwartzes. Okay. We are on number 19. Hamaki's dam mehaktfayim. If one, we talked about, in the old days, in the medical world, to help people get cured, healed, they would attach leeches, and these leeches would consume the blood, and the body would react by creating new blood, or the marrow in the bones would help create better blood or antibodies that could help fight off any types of diseases that was affecting the body at the time. So we talked about the idea of washing your hands there. So he says if you did it on the shoulder, not on the hands or the lower arms, he says you don't have to wash your hand. Oh, I'm sorry. If you even did it on your shoulders, of course you have to wash your hands. So even if you did it on your shoulders, where you would think you wouldn't have to, you would have to wash. If you didn't wash your hands, you should be afraid. There should be a fear, and maybe this is just a natural result. If you didn't wash your hands, you may just be walking around afraid of things and not even know what you're afraid for 7 days. If you shaved, okay, I don't know why it wasn't brought down earlier, but if you cut your hair or shave, you also have to wash your hands 3 times. It's also part of the cutting off life. Even though it's not alive, it doesn't have, what's the word? It doesn't have nerve endings, but it's still part of that process of growing. So if you shave and you didn't wash your hands, you should be afraid for 3 days. And if you cut your fingernails and you didn't wash your hands, you will be afraid for 1 day, and you won't even know from what you're afraid of. Okay, that may be a whole class in itself. So if one should wash their face, if one washed their face, we're number 20. If one washed their face and they didn't dry it well, so then they may develop cracks in their face and all types of maybe boils, and the only way to heal it, or a certain way to heal it, is through washing your face with beet juice. Maybe, what's that called? Borscht, I don't know. Anyway, so that is where we end today. And I'm so glad we have some new people joining us, and that's it for the Halacha Series.